الحمد لله وكفى والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created within each human being some strengths and some weaknesses. And every one of us is the same. We have some strengths that Allah created within us, and we have some weaknesses that Allah created within us. And the interesting thing is that in each person, those strengths and weaknesses are different. So in one person, you see that Allah created them that they don't speak. They don't speak very much. And so when you advise them, you have to advise them to speak. You should encourage, so we encourage them, you should speak to your friends, you should speak to your family members, you should speak to people in your home, etc. And then another person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, that person speaks too much. They'll speak no matter where they are, it doesn't matter, they find a place, they start speaking. And you have to advise them the opposite. And Ajib, this is the exact scenario that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam found himself in the sense that he was with a group of companions, and the companions had various qualities to them, and sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would give one piece of advice, and then he would give the exact opposite piece of advice to another person. And that was because Rasulullah ﷺ, he catered his advice towards the people. When he gave advice to the people, he catered it towards them. He knew exactly what they were. If there was someone who had a tendency towards anger, then he would give them advice towards coolness. And if there was a person who had a tendency towards laxity, he would give them advice towards focus. And so sometimes it gets confusing because you're reading hadith and there's one advice said to one person and another advice said to another person, and they appear to be opposite. But in essence, they're not opposite. They are the reality of the spectrum which Rasulullah ﷺ found himself in, which is that he was dealing with human beings. So all of us are the same way. We have some weaknesses to us and we have some strength to us. In fact, there's a very interesting hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that the people are like mines. The people are like mines. So what is a mine? A mine is a place that you have to dig, and you dig, and finally some gem arises. But it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of patience, but each mine has its own gem. For example, the coal mine has coal, the gold mine has gold, the diamond mine has diamond, right? So each of the different mines will produce a different type of gem. However, the point remains that each mine has a gem within it. Now sometimes it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, you have to chisel away, but eventually there's some gem, some valuable, let's put it that way, some valuable resource within that mine. So the same way, every human being, every person, the Prophet ﷺ said that الناس كالمعاد, the people are like mines. So you have to chisel away until eventually there's some gold within them. Somebody has a diamond, somebody has gold, everybody has some sort of special characteristic. So this is one thing that we all have to appreciate, that each of us is created differently, and there's no way that each of us are going to be the same, but everyone has a special characteristic. Now, what the goal of the Islamic community is, that each of those characteristics be put together in a quilt to make a blanket. So what happens? One person is very good at organization, another person is very good at worship, another person is very good at linking people together. Then all of those people come together under the guise of the Islamic community. They submit themselves to the Sharia and the Sunnah. And when those efforts come together, then and only then does the whole community become uplifted. And perhaps this is a one interpretation of the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, Inna sa'yakum la shatta. Inna sa'yakum la shatta. Verily your efforts are dispersed. Meaning that it's not the success of the community doesn't lie in each person doing their own thing. The success of the community lies in each person bringing their special characteristic to the table. And when everybody brings their special characteristic to the table, then that becomes that special quilt that makes the community. So this is something that we all have to appreciate. Now, there's two types of dispersedness. There's two types of dispersiveness that's present within the individual person. When we say inna sa'yakum la shatta, there's two interpretations from our scholars. Number one, that your own independent efforts are too dispersed, right? So that what happens is you yourself aren't focusing on what's important in life. You're interested in sports, you're interested in movies, you're interested in Islam, you're also interested in shopping, and you're also interested in etc. So what happens? Your own efforts are too dispersed, and human beings don't have the ability to do so many things. If you want to succeed, you have to pick one thing. You have to focus on that thing 1,000% and absolutely dedicate yourself to it. Like they say, the scholars say that knowledge, it never gives itself to you until you give yourself to it. There's a famous statement of our scholars, that knowledge never gives itself to you until you give yourself to it. Meaning Islamic knowledge is not something you can never pursue part-time. Yes, you can use your part of your time to pursue it, but you have to be 100% devoted to it. If it's just a side thing, I study a little bit of Islamic knowledge, and I also study a little bit of astronomy, and I also study a little bit of this on the side, and I'm also taking a cooking class on Saturdays. Then what happens is you lose focus of your goal. The goal becomes knowledge, and knowledge will never give itself to you unless you give yourself 100% to it. Same thing with our mashayikh. You see that the students who gave 100% to their teachers, they gave 100% back. I've seen that with Shaykh Zulfikar myself. So many hundreds of thousands, nowadays millions of people are dying and clamoring to shake his hand. It's come to that point, and that's what happens as these scholars, they become older, and as they reach the very end of their lives, this is the history of our scholars. They get appreciated by the community, and you see millions and millions of people just dying to take a look at them. Shaykh Zulfikar was recently on a trip in India, and people are calling me and telling me, some of my friends in India are calling me and telling me that people were just clamoring to just touch his hand. People came to the talks 8 hours before with the goal of just seeing him. They knew they couldn't hear because there's not those speaker systems where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people can hear. They weren't coming to listen. They were just coming to see the face of that man. Just imagine. This is the way people are interacting with our mashayikh and our scholars. But then you think that, okay, fine, this many hundreds of thousands of people are all dedicated and trying to interact with Shaykh Zulfikar, but then who's in his inner circle? Who are the people that he's regularly in touch with, regularly communicating with, really focused on? And it's always the people that are making some sort of effort towards the deen. The people that are taking the skills that Allah gave them and serving the deen 100%. Not part-time. Not just that they're very excited. It's interesting, Shaykh Zulfikar will go to a talk and there'll be 100,000 people and it won't faze him. Because he knows those are 100,000 people, alhamdulillah, they come, they make tawbah, they make istighfar, they're rejuvenated towards the deen. But then he'll go and give the same amount of time. Let's say he spent 2 hours talking. He'll give the same 2 hours after that to one person. But that's a person who's serving the deen. He'll sit with that person, discuss with that person what needs to be next, what needs to be done next, make a plan, etc. So basically, again, the same notion that our mashayikh are the same way. You give yourself 100% to the service of the deen, then they begin to advise you on how you should serve the deen. So we have to be people who take our skills and we have to apply it 100% towards the deen. There can be no other purpose of what Allah gave us. Like it says in the Quran, وَلَا يَأْبَ كَاتِبٌ أَن يَكْتُبَ كَمَا أَلَّمَهُ اللَّهُ. And the katib, the person who knows how to write, cannot decline to write. This is in reference to Islamic contracts. When a contract is being made, the Sharia establishes that you need witnesses and you need to write the contract. This is an established notion from the Quran within our Sharia. And then in the context of that discussion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a statement, وَلَا يَأْبَ كَاتِبٌ أَن يَكْتُبَ كَمَا أَلَّمَهُ اللَّهُ. And the katib should not decline to write, كَمَا أَلَّمَهُ اللَّهُ. Because it's Allah that educated him and gave him the skill of writing. I.e., basically, what we're being told is that the skills that Allah gave us, the qualities and characteristics and the traits that Allah gave us, these have to be used for the sake of Allah. You can't decline. You can't say that I'm interested in using my skill to do something else. I don't want to use it to serve the deen. We have skills. Allah gave us those skills. If we are educated, Allah educated us. It's not that we educated ourselves. Allah created the opportunity for us to have peace and quiet so that we can study. When you look at some places in the world and bombs are dropping on their heads, they have no opportunity to study. They're just trying to survive. You look at some places in the world, they go to sleep every night hungry. They have no opportunity to study. They have to go out the next day and make enough money to feed the family for that day. Forget about that day, just for that meal sometimes. You look at some places, there's disease. These people don't have time to study. These people are just trying to survive in their diseased state and keep a smile on their face. But Allah gave us the opportunity and the circumstance that we can study, develop ourselves, advance ourselves, gain skills. But all of that has to, the test of that is it has to be turned back and used in the community, for the sake of the community, for the sake of the deen, as servants of the deen. One of the very common notions that you get from when you sit with the scholars of the deen is that they always talk about this one common theme, which is to do khidmat of the deen. To do khidmat of the deen, to serve the deen. You ask them, what do you have to do? You have to do khidmat of the deen. We have to figure out some way that we can serve the deen, that we can perpetuate the deen, that we can pass the deen on that was passed to us. Meaning, some people took effort, right? There's no way that we would be connected with 1400 years of scholarship unless people among the past 1400 years took some effort and time to establish the deen. If Imam Bukhari didn't take the effort to preserve hadith, where would we be? If Imam Muslim didn't take this effort, he was a skillful man. He could have used he was a very, very skillful man. If he had the ability to decipher hadith and to analyze them and determine which ones are correct and which ones are not, and then compile them and write them and preserve them, then he also had the ability to go to the market and make a lot of money. He had that inherently within him. He could have spent all his time and effort building up a massive empire of businesses in the market. He would have succeeded. Those types of people have the ability, whatever they do, they're successful. Yet, they took the time and the effort and the energy and they devoted themselves 1,000% to the deen. And we're dependent on them. If Imam Abu Hanifa didn't use his brilliance to establish a code of fiqh, where would we be today? If the Qur'an didn't take the time to establish the mechanisms of tajweed, where would we be today? If somebody didn't take the time to establish the tenets of grammar, where would we be today? We're dependent. We're eating from the efforts of our pious predecessors. But there's two people, right? There's the one who eats and then there's the one that serves. So it's our responsibility. We see this huge wave of deen being passed to us, right? Here we are at this border and now we have to pass this deen to the next generation and preserve it within ourselves. So it takes some effort to pick up that weight and carry it. This is a weight. It's heavy. You have to put it on your shoulders. You have to move with it and hand it to the next generation. But that takes time. That takes effort. And if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it. What, you think some person from the outside is going to come and do it? Yes. If we really don't do it, Allah will replace us with somebody from the outside. But nobody's going to come from the outside and just do it without any impetus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may choose that. But it's our opportunity. It's our golden opportunity. It's the defining moment of who we are. It's the defining feature of who we are, that Allah gave us skills and the opportunity to serve the deen. Though we should not think in any other way. We should look for every opportunity to plug ourselves in to service of this deen, to do khidmah of the deen. And we should not tire. We should not ever think that there's a moment, I need my rest, I need my this. You should just put your head down and work and work and work and work. And it's through that effort that the taste of Islam arises. Sahaba had the taste of Islam, but because they were constantly serving the deen. It doesn't just come sitting in a corner somewhere and you don't make any effort. You have to make a lot of effort. And it's not only you. The whole family has to be devoted. You look at the family of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were so unified in their effort towards the deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them to be the family that supported the hijrah. You look at the hijrah and all the aspects of the hijrah, it was the family of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh that basically supported the whole thing. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh was chosen as the companion. The family made the food was delivered, etc., etc. It's a very lengthy story, but the point is the whole family was chosen for that effort. Why? Because the whole family was unified in their service of the deen. The whole family rotated around the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's the same way. We as individuals, as families, as a community, we have to be absolutely dedicated to the service of the deen. There can be no other thing that arises, no other question, because it's such a heavy job that there's no opportunity to think about anything else. If someone puts a very heavy job on you, if you're very serious about your schoolwork and you have a final exam, then you tell everybody a week before the exam, I can't do anything. I got this big exam. It's a lot of weight. I'm 1,000% focused on it. After my exam, I'll talk to you. Okay, that's a little final exam that arises multiple times in one's life and actually has no meaning years afterwards. You don't remember what you did on the final. But imagine the final exam of having to stand before Allah. If a person recognizes that my life is just a test, and that there is going to be, this is all an exam, and that it's going to be graded, and on the day of judgment I have to stand before my Lord and I'll receive a grade, then what type of focus should exist within that human being? We should be thinking that, when people want to come to us and waste time, we should say to them, I'm really busy. I really have a lot going on. I have so many issues, and we should feel that there's some degree of severity to what we're carrying on our shoulders, because there is. It's a very heavy weight. We're carrying the deen. We're carrying the message of the messenger. We're carrying the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon the final messenger, and we're trying to preserve it so that the next generation has access to it. And of course, we're dependent on that prior generation for their efforts. So in every way, shape, and form, we have to be people that serve the deen. And in any resource that Allah gave us, there can be no holding back. There can be no holding back. Allah gave you time, you must use your time to serve the deen or you will fail. Allah gave you wealth, you must use your wealth to serve the deen or you will have failed. Allah gave you intellect, you must use your intellect to serve the deen or you will have failed. If Allah gave you strength of the body, you have to use it to serve the deen or you will have failed. And there are so many opportunities to do so. And we, as individuals, we cannot have our efforts be dispersed. Inna sa'yakum lashatta. Allah is highlighting a weakness within us, that your efforts are too dispersed. You'll never succeed if you want to do A plus B plus C plus D plus E. I want to follow the baseball, I want to follow football, I want this, and then I want also my fifth topic of my day is deen. You're never going to succeed that way. You'll always be dispersed. You have to be 100,000% focused on the deen, on your progress in the deen, and on your service of the deen. And that's as an individual. Now, when a whole bunch of individuals like that come together, then that's called the community. That's called the Islamic community. Islamic community is not a bunch of people with one color of skin. Islamic community is not a bunch of people with one type of dress. It's not a bunch of people with the same types of names. The Islamic community is defined as a group of people that understand who they are, why they're here, and the consequences of what they're doing. That's called the community. And the Sahaba were the greatest example of that community. They fully understood who they were. They understood the consequences of what was going on. And they had a goal and a purpose in mind. And they were unified in that purpose. And it's the unified effort, and it was the unification around that purpose that led to the community. And that's what creates unity as well. People want to paint the broad brush of unity. They say everybody should be unified. Unified by what? What does unity mean? Unity doesn't mean that we all sit together and eat the same food. Unity doesn't mean that we all have to speak the same language. Unity means we have unity of purpose. That we have the purpose is the service of Allah. Unity is not going to come that we all want to unify, that we have to all make a lot of money and impress people. Unity comes in the whole notion of community is based on service of Allah. There can be no other community. This was the community of the companions. This is the community of the pious predecessors. And this is the community we seek to join. Community of people who recognize who they are and take their efforts to serve others in the deen. So there's no way around it. Allah gave us, this is our test. Allah has given us a tremendous opportunity. We have this space around us where we have the opportunity to study, develop skills, amass a certain degree of wealth, and we have freedom and health. You look at the vast majority of the world, and they're suffering from so many diseases that we don't suffer from because of the environment that we're in. You just look at the lives of most of humanity, and it's shocking how much they have to bear. You think that on the Day of Judgment that we were just given a gift and a sort of a pass, and you're just going to be put into Jannah just because you were born in America and because you had a little bit of money to your name? This is a test where it's all set up. The whole thing is a setup. We will be asked on the Day of Judgment, you were put in this circumstance. What did you do in that circumstance? We're deceiving ourselves if we think any other way. So we as individuals have to become serious about this. We as families have to become serious about this. The whole family has to rotate around this. The wife and the husband and the wife together have to recognize that this is their purpose and they have to move forward together in that purpose. The kids should be in that same notion. They should see their parents serving the deen day and night. They don't need to see their parents coming home and kicking back and relaxing with the video games. Of course, then that's what they'll do when they grow up. They'll be sitting and relaxing with the video games. That's not relaxation. That's wasting time. Relaxation is the ecstasy that arises from salah. That relaxes the human being. The ecstasy that arises from experiencing the verses of the Quran, not listening to them, not hearing them, experiencing them. But that comes through sacrifice. Sahaba tasted the deen because they created the field that was ready to taste it. Yani they were able to grow the seeds of the deen because their soil was so soft. You know, when you want to plant something, you start with hard soil. And you want to plant something, you have to bang on it, bang on it, bang on it, bang on it, turn it over, turn it over, turn it over, turn it over until it's ready to plant. Then you plant the seed. Then something beautiful grows from it. So the same way, you can't just take cement and put a seed in it and expect it to grow. You have to take your heart, your soul, who you are, and you have to put effort and effort and effort and effort until that soil becomes special. Then you plant the seed. You sit in a talk, you hear a hadith, it hits you, it grows, it picks up and it becomes a flower. You sit in the company of scholars, what's present in their heart comes into your heart, it hits you, it grows, it becomes a beautiful garden. That's the notion of the deen. This called nisbah. We call that nisbah. Nisbah is that seed. And Shaykh Zulfikar used to say that transferring the nisbah, to take what's in the heart of someone special and to obtain it into your heart is a millisecond job. Millisecond job. An average person came in front of Rasulullah ﷺ and became a sahabi in a millisecond. They attained the level of sahaba in a millisecond. All they had to do was come in front of Rasulullah ﷺ and declare the deen or accept the deen and see him in a state of iman that put them into the status of sahabi. That's how quickly it occurs. But then he would say to us, but the problem is that you bring your pots upside down. You bring concrete instead of soft soil. So what happens? I have to spend 20 years training you, and then the nisbah transfers in a millisecond. But it takes so many years to just reset the person. So we have to soften who we are. We can't just kick back and relax and, today I want to eat this, tomorrow I want to see this, the next day I want to go here, and I'm just relaxing, and then I'm just expecting the deen is going to come to me, and that somehow I'm some very special person, and all of a sudden, the deen will just be mine. It doesn't work that way. It never comes that way. It comes through sacrifice and tears and bloodshot eyes and an aching body. And that's where the taste of the deen arises. The taste of the deen arises when you're on your last breath. You can't stand because you've just expended every ounce of energy, and then Allah gives you that ecstasy. It doesn't come any other way. It doesn't come lying comfortably in bed and you have an amazing experience. It comes from struggle, from sacrifice, from putting your head down and working hard every single day, serving, carrying the deen on your neck. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides you with a taste of the reward of Jannah. That's just a little opening to encourage you, because Allah sees how tired His servant is. He sees how that the servant needs a little bit of encouragement. Then a small taste is given, which then carries the servant to the next step. So we have to ask the question, what are we doing? What are we doing with that which Allah has given us? This gift of space. This is called space, right? Wus'a, space. Space has been created because we're not ill. We're young and energetic. Space has been created because we're not starving. We eat 3 meals a day. Space has been created because we don't sleep in the street. We have a roof over our head. That's space. It gives you opportunity to do more. It doesn't mean that you now relax and pretend you're in Jannah here. It opens space to create an opportunity to serve and to test the human being to see that in space, in openness, what do they do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests some people with constriction. He constricts them with disease. He constricts them with no home. He constricts them with hunger. He constricts them with poverty. And then He tests them. Do they have patience in that? And with other people, Allah creates space and sees, when I give them space, what do they do? Do they relax and kick their feet back thinking that they're in Jannah? Or do they take the opportunity of that space to bring other people into their space to absolve them of their difficulties? Do they take the extra wealth that they've been given and use it to feed the people that I tested with poverty? Do they take the extra space that's been given and use it to perhaps house or clothe or feed other people that are in need? Or are they feeding themselves? Are they interested in their own livelihood and their own recreation? It's all a test. It's all one big test. It's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the vastness of the earth. So we should be first of all, we should recognize that everybody has a skill. You cannot decline your skill. You cannot say, I don't have anything, I can't do anything. Everybody has a skill. Every single person does, because the Prophet ﷺ explained it, that all of us are like gold mines. And then we should dig. We should dig. We should find that skill. And we should sharpen it. It's part of the responsibility. When we go to school, when we learn, when we have the opportunity to study, it's part of that digging through the mind. We sharpen some skill within us. But the purpose of sharpening that skill is not so that we can then obtain a big paycheck and live the lifestyle of the quote-unquote rich and famous. The purpose then is to take that skill and to use it for the service of the deen and make it a mechanism for us to be able to enter into Jannah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to be among those whose skills are revealed. And may He make us among those whose skills are used for the service of the deen. May He make us among those who struggle and strive for the deen with every last bit of energy within us. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.